Welcome to the Brave Podcast. I'm your host, Connie Jacob, and today I'm so excited to announce the release of my audiobook of Bring Them Closer. We put the parent and the teacher edition together into one audiobook. And to be honest, what I love about the audiobook is that it's kind of like this podcast. I'm just speaking like we're having coffee. If you can see me on YouTube right now, you'll see that I'm just wearing a comfy sweater. I really want you, the listener, to feel like you're sitting down with me. Whenever you're listening to my podcast, if you're going to listen to my book, that you feel like you're sitting down with a friend. That matters so deeply to me, especially as somebody who believes so deeply in attunement and connection. And today, what I thought I could do for you is actually read you a section of my Bring Them Closer book. This is the parent edition, but the teacher edition is very much the same. In fact, when it comes to our relationships, so much of what I talk about in Bring Them Closer is really not about parenting. It's not about teaching. It feels like human relationship 101. And I feel like we've really lost the art of being human in our relationships. We're so product driven. We're so end result driven. We're so behavior driven. We want the three easy steps to get someone to do ABC. We want the end result. And that is creating a very disconnected, polarized culture in our workplaces, in our homes. And again, it all comes back to, do we know how to really be loved and how to love? And so what I would love to do is just read you probably my favorite section of this book, because so much of my work in teachers, with leaders, with parents, the work that I've done for myself is so much about making sense of our own inner world so that we know how to relate to others. And so this chapter is called Your Family's Future is Yours to Write, or Your Classroom's Future is Yours to Write. So many people feel like victims. They feel like, well, if my principal was just better, or if I had a better boss, my workplace would be better, or if things were different in this way, our home would be different. And I'm here to tell you that actually we get to write more of the story than we think we do. And so I talk here a little bit about how our experiences in our life shape and create our story. How you make sense of what happened to you in your childhood and your adult life is crucial. How you make sense of those experiences and how they've influenced you today is even more crucial. It's not just our childhood experiences that we need to look at, it's our adult ones. Have you lost a job? Have you been through grief? Toxic workplaces? These experiences all shape us. Neurologically, it wires our brain and it creates heart wounds, or it creates experiences that cause a physical reaction. Death, grief, abusive relationships, all of those things, they create us. And so making sense of how they've affected our day-to-day relationships becomes very important. The connection we have with our children, with our students, with others is highly connected on how we make sense of those life experiences. And so many people, when I talk about being brave, this is what I'm talking about. Being brave to make sense of those hard places. A lot of people don't want to go there. A lot of people don't want to be brave in those areas. But if we are, we can actually see the stories that we want to create happen. If we have not made sense of or properly processed our life experiences, this will have a profound impact on how we react to different situations in our life. And our response towards others can be over the top emotional, like it was for me, or it can lead to impulsive behaviors that nobody wants. And then we wonder why relationships bring out the worst in us. We wonder why people happen and we're like, why did I not just stay home? Why don't I just be alone for the rest of my life? But they don't have to be like that. And so we, the adults, have an incredible opportunity to shape children's brains. I, the mom, the CEO of my home, along with my husband, we have the impact to be able to rewire brains through experiences. And many of you know that we have a home reno company. The colors that we use on our walls, the environment, the physical environment matters. but also the emotional and the relational. We can actually rewire people's brains towards health, towards love, towards emotional intelligence, just by the way we create our environments physically, emotionally, mentally, and all those things. And so in this book here, I say I used to teach an empathy workshop. I would ask high school students, do you create who you are, or do others create who you are? Through a unique method, I would take students through a process that they were able to see how hard it is for someone to become resilient without the help of others around them. And our world does not make this easy. We're often told we create our destiny. And that is true. Again, you get to be the creator and the author of the story that you write for your environment. But at the same time, there's other narratives being imposed on you that make it extremely hard. We make it hard for people to do this when we mistreat them, when we abuse them, put them down. Studies of trauma, of course, it supports this. And despite our desire to be authentic, we live in a world where we have learned how to show up. And this is why we are so fixated on behavior modification. This is why we want those 3 easy steps to manage your classroom, to have a productive workplace, to have a home where your kids listen to you. And I'll tell you, in the world of human relationships, that's going to fail you every single time. Our assumptions and judgments of others keep their armor on, making us feel justified in our assumptions of them. The bully gets called out instead of being seen as that hurting, frightened person underneath. The shy girl is labeled a snob. The oppositional child is rebellious. We humans have the ability to take one another's armor off and see the person for who they really are. It takes an incredible amount of vulnerability to see past the exterior of another person and find the gold inside of them. We have a responsibility to build one another up, speak destiny, and not tear down. So, who created you? What experiences and people and situations have created the person that I'm talking with right now? What experiences have created the thoughts in your mind, the emotions that you feel most, the way you react to certain situations? Making sense of those actually allow you to start writing a new story rather than the narrative continually writing it for you. You are now the author. Your life experiences have shaped you, but there's something else that's at play. It's called agency, and you have a lot of it. We view everything from the framework of our own experiences, our family history, what influences us, what we listen to. I saw a quote that says, we don't see things the way they are. We see things the way we are. We get stuck in patterns that don't support the way we want to be. The story we tell ourselves is filled with holes. It's filled with perceptions that maybe have been distorted by the way we've been treated by other people. They're not necessarily always true. This is where most misunderstandings, arguments, and divisions come from, not having a full perspective of our whole story and not understanding the perspective of the other person, whether that be your child, your student, someone you work with, friendships. We live our life in echo chambers. Algorithms keep us locked up, so we're constantly hearing our own voice back at us. We find our tribe who listens to the same podcasts that we do, read the same books, believes the same things, and we form friendships with people who think just like us. We can't help but mirror one another as humans. Mirror neurons connect our brains with others. And this is why it's hard for other people's moods not to affect us. It's not because you're weak, it's because your neurobiology of your brain actually goes right against that. Their story and your inner story are colliding in that moment. The way we perceive situations, people, that determines how we behave. The way we perceive is how we're communicated to, how we've been treated. And the mind processes all of our experiences through story. And that's why your mind is always telling you a story of the way things are. We just might not realize it. This is why it's important to dig underneath what story we're telling ourselves. What has been my perceived perception of an experience, and to dive underneath that, because underneath it is the transformation that you and I are looking for. When we dig under the reason that we might be yelling at our kids or getting frustrated with the people around us, we can remove ourselves from those feelings of shame and actually be able to address the underlying issues. I want to show you a concept that I talk about in this book. We talk a lot about the emotional suitcase that we bring into situations. And so if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that I have my antique suitcase right here. And what we didn't realize as kids is that we were we had an emotional suitcase that was packed for us by our parents. And to be honest, they had an emotional suitcase that was packed for them by their parents. And so in the emotional suitcase, my grandparents packed all kinds of things. They didn't even realize that they were packing this, but they were packing in things like hard work ethic, surviving through the Great Depression, and all the experiences and the stories that went with that. And they packed that in to this emotional suitcase. Maybe there was some post-traumatic stress that was packed in. Maybe there was some alcoholism that got packed in. Maybe there was, again, the hard work ethic. There's all kinds of good and not good packed into this emotional suitcase. And they closed it up and they passed it on to my parents. And my parents didn't even realize that they had a full emotional suitcase. And they opened it up and they decided what they wanted to keep in there. We're going to keep the hard work ethic, but we're going to get rid of the alcoholism. We're going to pack this in there and that in there. The thing is that we're not even aware of these things. And these become our stories. And then they closed it up and they passed it on to me. And I didn't realize that I have a full emotional suitcase that's been passed down from generation to generation. And until I actually look in this suitcase to see what, not just in my own life, has been passed down as my own stories, the experiences that have happened to me, but also what has been packed for me by my parents, my grandparents, their parents, generations of ways of thinking and doing things that I don't even realize. I get to choose what I put in this suitcase for my kids. I get to choose what I want my life to be about. I have agency over that. The most hopeful thing that I ever read over and over again, all kinds of studies about how the brain is moldable, how the brain can be rewired at any point in our lives, has given me so much hope. The story that I have had does not have to be the story that I will have in my future. It doesn't need to be that way. We can actually rewire our brains. And that's a whole other podcast. Maybe that's a good one that's coming up, because I will be talking about how to work with students and kids or people in your office who struggle with anxiety, depression, opposition, ADHD. There's ways to work with people, but a lot of it comes down to, how do I manage me? And that means looking bravely into the experiences of our life that shape us. So, what have been the experiences that have shaped your life? And what perceptions do you have of yourself and others based on that? You know, it's interesting. I've been reflecting on some of my pivotal life moments. We all have those. You know, those moments that you were cruising along in life and then something happened to you and it deeply impacted the trajectory of your life or the way you thought from that point on. It's kind of like being in a car accident. Ever since I got rear-ended, now I am constantly aware to look in my rearview mirror. Are people going to come and hit me from behind? It's raised an awareness that that's possible. I know for myself, one of the greatest pivotal moments of my life was losing a job that I loved. And the perception that I had of that experience, I didn't realize that it wasn't complete. I'm just now at almost 50 processing something that happened to me at age 27. For many years, I told myself a story of what that was. And some of it was true, but some of it was the story that I was telling myself, because shame has its own version of your story. I told myself that it was because I was incompetent. It's because I lacked wisdom. It's because I didn't deserve. It's because I wasn't a good team player. I was never meant to be in a workplace. I'm a gypsy. I'm a wild card. I'm chaotic and I don't deserve to be in on a team. That's the story that was told to me by shame. And I chose to believe it, and it distorted my perception of who I was until this point in my life. And just now, I'm revisiting that story and saying, wait a second, is that actually the way that really happened? Because that has informed the way I interact on teams. That has informed the way I think about work. That's informed the way I think about myself. I'm thinking to myself that I'm chaotic when I'm actually extremely creative and innovative and really good on a ground level, pioneering new things. But that was stolen because the perception inside of me was telling me, no, see, you're no good there. You're trouble. You're a burden. And so, if we can think about a pivotal moment in our life and how that has impacted the way we interact with others, the way we see ourselves, and we can be brave there and say, what is the truth? What was the truth? There's going to be things that were true about that situation, but in hindsight, what is the reality now? What is the actual evidence of those things that we might be thinking? And if we can dive into those things, now neurologically, what that does is that rewires those neural pathways that have fired together for all those years. You are chaotic. You are not good at this. The whatever stories you've told yourself, they are locked in. And as you begin to be brave to rethink these stories and to make sense of them, what happens is that your brain starts to wire towards the truth. It starts to wire towards love. It starts to be able to connect with people. A lot of the problems with parents not being able to connect with their kids is that we came into our parenting with a full emotional suitcase. And I'm not saying you have to have this whole thing figured out, but what I am saying is that you need to be brave enough to look at it, to bring it into the light so that now you can create a new story. You don't know what new story to create unless you're looking at what needs to be created. Many teachers are having a hard time connecting with their students because they're like, I have too much on my plate. I don't have time. And that is another perception story that's been based on situations coming at you. How much of that is true? A lot of it is true, but there's also perceptions there that need to be challenged. So, what are those things? Because connecting with those students is of the utmost importance. Leaders, leaders realizing that, oh my goodness, I have had a wall. I have not been able to lead my team or connect with people at work because of the wall that I've had, the emotional barrier that I've had. And so, what are those stories there? As you begin to unpack them, you'll become a better leader. You'll become a better spouse. How many of us have walls up towards our spouse and we don't really have the time or the capacity or even the desire to look at that bravely in the face? But when you do, there's a new story waiting for you. And so I would ask for you to be brave to look at those things. And very soon, my audiobook will be coming out. You can check it out. You can have a listen to it, whether you're a parent, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a frontline youth worker. This would be a great audiobook for you. But also, again, just coming back to those human relationships 101. Friends, no matter what, keep being brave.